This video is sponsored by MPB. We call this project Genesis because we imagine turning back the clock to the volcanic eruptions and the earthquakes that shaped the earth, to the air, water, and fire that gave birth to life, to the oldest animal species that still resist domestication, to remote tribes whose way of life is largely unchanged, and to extant early forms of human organization. I wanted to examine how humanity and nature have long coexisted in what we now call an ecological balance. Salgado is one of the few photographers who has managed to make past, present, and future collide within the same frame. A feat we can also translate by timelessness. And timelessness, while not very often discussed, is nevertheless a very important quality in photography because it removes the idea of needing a certain context, background, or knowledge over the subject of the photograph. On my video about Richard Prince, the most hated photographer, I spoke about the fact that perhaps I lacked some context and some background into understanding what his stance and true intention meant. Now you're welcome to watch that video, but here the thing is completely the opposite. We don't need to have a context or a background in order to understand Salgado's pictures. We just need to be who we are, and that is human beings. Because here I'm speaking on the quality in a photograph that ultimately speaks to photography's most important role, that of breaking the barriers of language in order to communicate or illustrate something or someone to an audience. And Salgado, over the course of his career, has been able to do this, from his very first work capturing the miners in Brazil during the 80s, following the migratory movements of displaced people in the 90s and so forth, or even territories shattered by conflict and famine. He has always been able to make his photos stand the test of time by focusing on important elements that contribute to this sense of timelessness. And those are, in my perspective, emotion, narrative, and the perception of time and space. Now, the focus on emotion is pretty evident. His photographs, particularly of people, highlight details of a gaze, a facial expression, a movement, a gesture, the roughness of a skin, signs of aging, of trauma, or pain. And these are, in effect, bridges that communicate that emotion to us, the viewers. Now, the perception of time and space falls into the realm of timelessness by the introduction of wideness to the shot, by highlighting the idea of an existent symphony between man and nature, of human, if you will, and its surrounding landscape. But of course, we shouldn't forget that to this, there's also another element that contributes quite a lot, and that is the black and white. Because it is in the absence of color that one can immediately induce a temporal limbo, or perhaps the illusion to memory, or some form of temporal suspension. And when it comes to narrative, I want to spend more time with it, and I want to dive a little bit deeper. Now, we've been seeing Genesis and images of part of that book over the course of the video so far, but I actually wanted to show you in more detail some of the work that it's included in this book, Other Americas. I feel like each image can be almost like a masterclass in terms of how to build a narrative through composition. So let's check this photo taken in Ecuador in 1982. We have immediately the black and white alongside the wideness of the frame that contribute to suggest a somewhat sullen moment. The direction of the light and the contrast it creates brings to the frame a sense of quietude that highlights the placement of the different subjects in the frame and the little stories that are taking place. A woman kneeling down speaking with a man who appears to be some sort of comfort for her, at least in my opinion. On the opposite end, someone coming out of the dark house putting their hat on suggests that he had to take it off in order to show respect to whomever or whatever is happening inside. This is also helped by the people that standing by the door observe the woman whilst others are hiding their faces, which suggests again a sort of sadness or weight of the moment. And at the center, a dog is sleeping, which kind of introduces a sort of suspension of time. The space, the dark, long clothes, the gestures give away a scene where themes of poverty and tradition are highlighted. Two ideas that repeated themselves in other images as Salgado paints a picture of another side of the American continent, a much poorer, humble, earthly bounded and God-obeying side of this continent. Now, in Genesis, which is another project completed by Salgado roughly around 10 years ago, he assumes a similar approach in the way that he captures indigenous people and their ancient clothing. He focuses on the dramatic effect light has over its subjects, their placement, expressions, and gestures to highlight the beauty and harmony in their ways of life that remain hidden away from the destructive ways of modern society. And it's in photos like these that I'm most able to understand his primary intention with this project Genesis. Quote, that is following a romantic dream to find and share a pristine world that all too often is beyond our eyes and reach. But lastly, I want to bring to the table something that I've learned with Salgado, and that is of extreme importance. I cannot help but acknowledge Salgado's importance in the history of photography as someone who went beyond genres, styles, and almost like in a similar path to that of Ansel Adams, focused on the most profound aspects of life, our purpose as humans, on our deep connection with Mother Earth, on the importance of tradition that is passed from generation to generation, on identity, and on compassion. And this speaks not only to us photographers interested in creating and seeing something of value through this craft, but to the millions of people out there that have no interest whatsoever in being photographers, but that through the images of Salgado have hopefully gained a newly found appreciation for their lives, for Earth and its different communities, for nature itself. And ultimately, in my perspective, these images speak on the true meaning and importance of photography, not just as a form of documentation, not just as a form of art, but ultimately as the bridge that can connect us to everything that is around us, even when we fail to see it or appreciate it. And on this, Salgado once said, "I did not make pictures just because I was an activist or because it was necessary to denounce something. I made pictures because it was my life, in the sense that it was how I expressed what was in my mind through the language of photography. So for me, it is much more than activism. It's my way of life, photography." As I discussed in this video, Salgado's work really brings into one frame past, present, and future, which is a great reminder at how impactful our photographic choices can be, and of course within that journey, the role our gear plays. And that's why today I want to partner and talk to you about MPB. MPB is one of the largest online platforms that is redefining the way we buy, sell, and trade our photographic gear. So whatever you have that you don't need, or whatever you need but don't have, definitely check out MPB for solid options. And I also feel like whatever you are in your journey, if you're starting out, if you're picking up photography again, or if you're kind of in the middle of achieving some type of goal with your creative path, definitely check out MPB, as they have cameras, lenses, all sorts of brands, and they're constantly updating their catalog. So you definitely should keep an eye out if you're looking for something, because you'll definitely find it there. I'm pretty sure I've been using MPB for years at this stage. Speaking from personal perspective, I've bought and sold and traded gear through MPB, and the process, it is really quite seamless, and of course removes a lot of headaches that we have when looking for new gear and simultaneously when trying to get rid of what we don't need. So check out MPB on their website right there. And also I wanted to thank them for kindly being such, amazing partners here on the channel, for believing in my work. I really appreciate that. And of course, I appreciate you for making it all the way to the end and for watching this video. I really appreciate your support, whether it is through watching videos, through comments, through feedback, through supporting my work via becoming members, buying books, etc. I really am appreciative of that, because it puts me in a privileged position, which is to do what I love. So I really appreciate that, and I want you just to know that I'm extremely grateful to people like you. So I'll see you in the next video, and until then, I wish you nothing but peace.